I have a question for Cernovich. The deliberations in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial have now gone on for over 2 days. What do you think that means?
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. If I were his lawyer, what I think it would mean is that if you can get a mistrial without prejudice, you want to roll the dice again, because the only outcome for you at that point is it's tending towards bad. If I had to guess, I would say that there's one or two holdouts to convict. It's the vast majority of people who are not guilty. A couple of activists got on that jury, and they're going to hang, because usually you hang the jury the other way. Usually your challenge is getting one or two people, you usually need two because one person's always going to back down, to vote not guilty and get the retrial. This, I think, is the opposite, because he's so clearly, like, if we were the left and he were convicted, my God, because he's so clearly not guilty. It's not even up for reasonable discussion.
If they were to get a mistrial without prejudice, would they get a new jury?
Yep, it'd be all over. New
Good
jury.
luck finding an untainted jury at this point. But on top of that, do they recall all the witnesses?
Yeah. So what you do, and this is why if you're Rittenhouse's lawyer, you're thinking, man, I have indigestion. Things have been going on for a long time, looking like we're not going to get a not guilty. If we roll the dice again, we have every witness now. We know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So we know what our opening argument, our closing argument is going to be. You have the test now.
The judge knows this.
Yeah.
The judge, when the Rittenhouse defense filed a motion for mistrial with prejudice, because it had, but they did that before deliberations even started.
Right.
But now we're a day into deliberations, and they came back on day 2 and said, we'll take a mistrial with no prejudice. So the judge has to know they're sweating.
Yeah, no, he knows, and the odds have changed. So the way things are going now, you think, let's roll again. We have everybody on the record now, all the evidence that the prosecutor had hid. It can only get better for the defense in a second trial. So if I'm them, I'm thinking it can only get better for us if we retry this mofo. It can only get better for us.
There's a lot of mistakes they made. There's a lot of things. The defense.
Yeah.
They did. I think they did fairly well. I think the state screwed up royally, but that means the defense has all of that knowledge of their screw-ups.
Yep.
They know the state's weaknesses and the things in the stand that really screwed them up. They have that advantage.
And they can pull the jury when there's a mistrial, so they can talk to the jurors who said, well, hey, why'd you think he was innocent?
Oh, wow, they can do that?
Oh, yeah. You can pull the jury.
Oh,
so you can,
wow.
Yeah.
So they can see what arguments work and what didn't.
Exactly. And then you focus group that. And Yeah. So a lot of people, you can't do this in criminal trials because you can't afford them. But in big, high-injury personal injury, they do mock trials, and they bring in juries, and then they say, well, or they'll even have like buttons where they're like, if you think something's really good, like you push the button, and some analysts, because this is where there's tens of millions of dollars at stake, and if it's just your life, it's just unfortunately.
So if they have a mistrial, does he go back in jail, or is he out on parole, on whatever it is?
He was out on bail, so he would remain out on bail.
Okay.
They could talk to the jury. They could get a reshot.
Okay.
It would only get better for the defense. So if I'm them and I could get a mistrial without prejudice, I know that people are going to second guess me, but I take that in a second.
Okay.
I got to tell you, if the reason why I don't think I could probably ever be on a jury is that there is almost no circumstance in which I would say guilty.
Okay, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not allowed to say this, so I'm going to tap dance a little about it. There's something called grand jury. And what grand jury is, there's like, I think 25 or 30 people. You're impaneled for 2 weeks, and you all have to sit in, and this is where you get charges put forward. You know, like they say a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. Mm-hmm. I said to them, this part I can't say, I'm an anarchist. I won't convict under any circumstances. They said, too bad, you're on the grand jury. I'm like, all right, now that I'm under these circumstances, I have to work within the system. It is very easy. I'm giving this advice to everyone, especially on drug charges. Juries want to be led. Mm-hmm. So if you are in the possibility of being on a jury and you say to people, look, we have no duty to convict. Do you really want to ruin this kid's life because he had some weed or was selling some weed? That's going to be on your conscience. Then talk about slavery and how I made this up. They wouldn't convict on slave charges back in the day. They probably didn't, but I was pulling out of my ass. And you'd be amazed at how receptive people are to letting people walk when someone makes a coaching case for them. And when that DA walks back in the room and you say, we're not returning any charges, they're baffled. But all it takes is that one person on that grand jury to sway everybody else and make a cogent argument.
But it's not just that people want to be swayed. It's that many are NPCs. A lot of people are there like, I don't want to be here. I got to go to work.
Yeah,
the game's on tonight.
But they do want to do the right thing.
For sure.
And your job is to tell them what that is.
As a leader, when you say we should not return an indictment. So my point was, if I'm on a jury and they say, like, here's a guy who was in his home, he defended himself, and the state says, we think that he actually intended to commit harm, I'd be like, not guilty. Yep. Because I'm like, very similar to your ideology. However, I say almost none, because if I'm on a jury and it's very, very, very clear cut, like Rosenbaum, I'd be like guilty.
Or there's cases where, like, if someone like literally raped or killed someone, it's
well, it depends. If there's victimless crimes,
exactly. Right.
In New Hampshire, I've heard stories about the Free State Project. Whenever they have gatherings, that whenever they find out someone has jury duty, they all celebrate and get really happy because they know it's an opportunity to nullify whatever laws they don't believe in personally. And, a lot of people, they get the jury duty notice. They're like, oh, crap, I don't want to do this. They feel bad about this. But you have an opportunity to raise your voice and actually make an argument that could have severe ramifications for the law on where you live. And there's a thing called victimless crimes. Do the research on it. Do the homework on it. Because if there isn't a victim, there's no reason the state should be going after individuals.
And I will never convict on a drug charge, no matter what.
Yeah, my body, my choice.
The judge could say, if the state has proven their case that this man was in possession of X, you must return a guilty verdict. And I'll say, no, I won't.
No, you won't. You don't have to.
When people give like very addictive drugs to children, I get a little nervous because I'm pretty wide open on drugs.
Kids are different. Kids are different. That's why I say almost.
No, that I would say in the instance of fentanyl, if someone is giving fentanyl to people and he knows they're dying,
but that's poisoning them. That's not giving them drugs.
It's a drug.
No.
Look at you guys. Yeah, I mean that's why it's hard. It's easy to say never.
No.
Lydia, that's not a drug charge. That's a murder charge.
That's interesting that you consider fentanyl, especially in large doses, poison. It's poison.
Like Ian, if I give you a soda, but it's really got arsenic in it.
Exactly. Arsenic's not a drug.
But
arsenic is a drug.
There's a victim.
Fentanyl's different.
Yeah.
In almost any circumstance where a person chooses, I would probably not convict.
So,
of course. Children are different. Victimless crimes are almost a guarantee. Like, this person was in possession of this, I'd be like, I don't care.
There's also informed consent. So if a person wants to take fentanyl, that is that person's right. It's his body. It's his choice. But if someone, they of course shouldn't. But if someone puts it in a substance and the other person doesn't know about it, that's a victim. That's a crime.
Like attempted
that's
murder
obviously something that should be punished, and someone should be held accountable for their individual actions.
I'll put it this way. In questions of individual choice, those kinds of trials, and almost never you'd never get me to convict on anything.
And this is a great opportunity for everyone to save a life.
Not only that, that's true, but with Kyle Rittenhouse, you know why there's no argument they could make in court to convince me to convict? I'm not saying you can't convince me that Kyle was wrong. I certainly don't think he was wrong. I think that there's reasons he shouldn't have been there for sure. But I believe he was defending himself, and I think there are a lot of issues at play. But the reason I would never convict ever on a self-defense issue is because it is better that 100 guilty persons go free than one innocent person suffer.
Yes, especially when he's a kid.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look, I understand the risks. I understand the risks of releasing 100 guilty persons, but I will not be party to a system that imprisons the innocent.
Well, the thing is, the releasing guilty people is what happened. He's fighting off pedophiles and assailants.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Rosenbaum was released that day.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a question about
true?
that. Some people have said he was in a mental hospital for trying to take his.
But some people are saying they can't find the records of that, and they haven't found the documentation proving that. Some people say it was a jail, but again, it's still very unclear.
Either way, my view is like, I think it's shocking to me how inhuman our legal system has become.
But it's always been this way, Tim.
Sort of. Yeah. Yes, I agree with you to a great degree, but when we had a very, very small, when our communities were very, very small and everyone knew each other, it was very different. Judge Smith was not sending Walter's kid to prison for the rest of his life because he was in possession. He's going to be like, aren't you Walter's kid? What are you doing coming down here with this stuff? If I see your dad down at the pub, I'm going to tell him what for. We're giving you probation or whatever. Today, the cop walks over and says, I don't know you. I don't care. Tell the judge.
Big city.
That's what happens.
The problem with density.
When the prosecutor, if the prosecutor were to find evidence of innocence, would they still go for the guilty verdict, or do they have a duty to be like?
Well, that's called the Brady violation. So that again goes to evidence. The prosecutor has a duty. So there's. I don't want to go too far in the weeds with you guys, but there are two different ways to do this. One is constitutionally the prosecutor has to disclose any evidence that could go to guilt or mitigation at sentencing. So if they know you're innocent, they have a duty to do it. Some states have what is called the open file law. So if you're a prosecutor, you just have to give your file to the defense. That way you can't say, well, I don't think this piece of evidence is really going to be what's called exculpatory evidence. It's not exculpatory, so you don't even give them that choice. And most people like me advocate open, or most people who are civil libertarians advocate open files. If you're going to, whatever you have to give over to the defense, right? Because your duty is to do justice. That's the myth is that, if you're a lawyer and you're suing me in a litigation case, your job is only to your client. You don't know anything to me, but the idea is prosecutors have a duty to quote unquote do justice. It's all fake.
What's
what
sad?
You're saying though is always been it's always been bad.
Yeah,
it's always been
But
bad.
you know what's sad to me? Prosecutors are supposed to, aren't they supposed to seek justice? That's the point of prosecution,
right?
Then they have grand juries, which is, okay, we're going to impanel regular people to see if they agree we should bring charges, and it's all broken.
Yeah. Well, there's another aspect to this. When people go to jail, they come out way worse. Jail is usually a university for criminals where they learn how to do more criminal activities
and
network with other people. And they come out of that place a lot worse than they came in, and they become more destructive towards society. And it's a cycle where they keep going in and out, in and out, and the system not only tortures them, not only deprives them, and especially with the January 6th people who were sent to jail, the inhumane situations that they're put in, cells that are flooded with sewage, denied basic medical attention, denied even proper food, getting beaten by guards. We're talking about a system that corrupts a human being and robs them of their life. So again, there are some really bad people out there. They deserve punishment, but a lot of times what they get in the prison system is not that.
And I think it's very unfortunate that when you talk about having better prison conditions for prisoners, a lot of people who are conservatives would be like, well, they shouldn't have done this, lock them up, throw away the key. God help you if this prosecutor's name decides you should be throwing away the key.
Well, they're in jail right now. They're called the January 6th.
I don't like the idea of deserved punishment. I don't like a justice system that is actually just a punishment or retribution system. I look at people who do bad things and say, how can we make them not do a bad thing in the future, and then welcome them back into the warm, loving bosom of society?
But then you guys were just saying that you define people by the lowest moment, though, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Some people, yes, and some people go to prison.
Right.
I'm not saying universal.
But that's the whole idea, though, is in a way, you have to choose. Do you want retribution? Do you want redemption? How do you find redemption?
Well, yeah. But I'm not saying it's a zero-sum game. Some people are not worthy of redemption. And I think we can try, or we can say of people like Rosenbaum who committed atrocities, we say this guy should probably be locked up forever. Because look what happened when someone like that does get released.
Well, that's why if you asked me and other people, like, people have thought about these issues, we send way too many people to prison, but we don't send violent criminals away long enough.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's wrong in both ways. Yeah.
It's like we got to sharpen the curve. The very violent get more time and most people get less. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.